I really enjoyed it. Like I felt like I wanted to feel. Of course, when you run for a really long time, it's hard, and towards the end you want to stop and all these things. But actually, like, I felt good. Like the way I was moving, I was able to kind of keep tuned into it. So my name's Paula Bedford, and I am actually a running coach, and I have a small running events company called Camino Ultra, and we put on ultra marathons and we coach ultra marathon runners. But I also like to run ultras myself. That's my favorite kind of running, is running for a long time, and I I suppose I came to running quite late, or running consistently. I kind of got back into running. I obviously ran as a kid and in school, but it was probably after my second child was born, when I was about 40, that I started running more consistently. And after kind of a couple of years of running, I realized that I could feel the effort in my running, and I suppose I've been sort of seeking out since then, wanting to kind of just connect with that more joyful way of moving and running, especially over longer distances. I'm quite interested in running as an adventure, so to be able to kind of have that kind of like joy and lightness in it is really important to me for those adventures. So
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So then before you started working with me with the balanced runner, was there anything specific you were struggling with other than just generally wanting to find that joy again?
Yes. So I discovered you through reading The Rise of the Ultra Runners.
Mhm.
And that was actually the first time that I'd even heard of Feldenkrais. I hadn't come across it before. And I sort of played around with it a little bit. And then I um, injured my knee quite badly. So I had a meniscus tear in my lateral collateral ligament, and I had some other kind of issues around my knee. Um, and I had got to the point where I couldn't run really. I'd had a long time actually off running, and getting back to running was difficult. Yeah. Especially when I was trying to build bigger mileage so that I could do longer races. There was a lot of instability in my knee. So it wasn't just kind of discomfort. Like I couldn't, like running was just hard because my knee was kind of giving out. So yeah, so it was that I wanted to address as well.
And then when you first heard about me,
Mm.
when you read that and
Yeah,
Inherited Fins,
yeah,
the rise of the ultra runners,
yeah.
um, was there like, what was your reaction? And was there anything that like gave you
Well,
pause?
yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, like running, it could be easier. I was just like kind of captivated by that idea, because I think I'd started to have a sense that I was over efforting, that there was some resistance there. And but I didn't really have the tools or a framework to to make sense of that, or to try and do something with it. And I know that a lot of coaching advice is like, when you're training, do hard sessions, grind it out. There's a lot of this kind of like language around it. And I've tried training harder. I can, run hard intervals. I've done marathon trainings with like fairly decent times. But it never felt easier at any point. I could, push myself to get faster, but I had never really got to the point where that resulted in then it somehow feeling easier when I was running, when I was moving. So yeah, I was kind of captivated by that idea.
Super.
And I think as I'm kind of aware of my age and wanting to running to be something I could continue doing for a long time.
Super. And then was there anything that made you hesitate
What to have
to start
coaching,
working with me?
to start working with you? Probably two things. I think, it's a significant investment, I would say. financially. It was a big financial investment for me.
The coaching.
But paying for it, well, we had a plan, paid for it monthly,
Right. Yeah.
It helped.
Always happy to
still,
do that.
That kind of like, coffee quota plus more for the month.
Yeah.
And which I, at certain points in your life, then it's really worth doing that, I think. But I wanted to make sure that I was at a point where I felt I could get the most out of it. And I suppose I wondered, I think in the back of my mind, I wondered if I was prepared enough, which I think with hindsight, I don't feel like that preparation was at all relevant. My thoughts about that, I can, I think you can just go into it and do it. I think the course is so, the way that you approach it and the lessons is very easy to follow and very, and so I don't think you can do anything to prepare for it, I suppose, is what I mean.
Right. I mean, sort of by definition with the coaching, we start where you are, wherever that is, right? So no preparation needed in that sense.
Yeah.
So let's see, you didn't do the camp, but we just went straight into the one-to-one coaching. Like we said, no preparation needed. And you came in looking to be able to run the big mileage, to be able to run ultras. And so how did that work out for you?
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out really well. I had got myself from a point of considering myself to have a really serious knee injury that I wondered if that was it. It sort of had persisted for so long. I thought, maybe this is just how it is now. So, through that process, I've definitely come to understand that there were other possibilities for me, and it really helped me to be comfortable running again, and that's really important to me. So my big challenge was the 100-miler, which is why I came to see you. So that was amazing. It was just such a great experience, and I got my sub 24-hour buckle.
Congratulations, that's great.
And in fact, I did it I had just wanted to get under 24. I was happy with like 23:59, but as it happened, I did it in 22:59, and also there was quite a big detour as well. So one of the bridges on the route was closed, and I think it added like about another 45 to 50 minutes on what you might normally expect to do. So I was pretty pleased with that. And I think most importantly, I really enjoyed it. Like I felt like I wanted to feel. Of course, when you run for a really long time, it's hard, and towards the end you want to stop and all these things, but actually, like, I felt good. Like the way I was moving, I was able to kind of keep tuned into it, so which is wonderful. I get a lot from my running adventures, and I like exploring. There's something amazing about being out for the whole day, and I just kind of grateful for every big long run that I managed to do. Is I'm really grateful for being able to do that. I've done quite a few big adventure runs since then, which has been really cool. I did a 115k route, which I ran with a friend through the night. It's like on a pilgrimage route through all these churches in Kent. It's called the St. Augustine Camino, and I've done some other kind of like big night runs. So so it's been really good, and so I'm back running. I mean, I was obviously thinking about all of the really amazing thing about Feldenkrais, and especially your course, is how I've gone back to it again, because I'm nearly 50 now. I run a lot. I still get niggles, but I've got like a really good toolkit from it. So, I mean, the starfish, I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I really love the starfish. And it's kind of one that I go back to again and again if I'm starting to feel a bit sort of lopsided, or something's not kind of feeling quite right. I've got a little bit of a niggle behind the back of my knee. So I'm like, okay, what do I think? In the past, I would have just been like, oh no, I'm injured, but now I'm like, okay, what can I do?
So you've talked a bit about, what you got from working with me, from doing the lessons, from going through doing one-to-one coaching with me.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you got that surprised you, that you weren't expecting as a benefit?
Yes, definitely. So you really can go quite deep into this process of learning about yourself and becoming aware of yourself and how you move. And that's, it just is not just restricted to running. Like, this then permeates everything, like every area of your life. So that, obviously, saying that sounds like, well, of course that's obvious, but I suppose I had gone into it specifically going, this is for running. And
Right.
and actually, it's, in a way, it's become quite a lot about how I move and the awareness that I have in everything I do. Like, I just notice a lot more about myself and my movement habits. And that hasn't gone away at all. And I think also that sense of being curious about how things are, so like through the way that the lessons unfold and they ask you to explore, and you become more able to I've become more comfortable with being curious about things, and I can do that, and I do that when I run now, even when I'm not doing a lesson. So I did a long run on Sunday, and this little naggy bit behind my knee was kind of get a bit more naggy after 20k, but then I just was like, oh, okay, so what about if I think about initiating the movement from my hip when I run, and from my knee, from my shoulder, and I just started to just think of different ways to move, and it was quite, and it helped me to kind of move a little bit easier somehow. So yeah, so it's kind of quite I feel like it's quite creative, actually. It kind of opens you up to being more curious and creative, I think.
That's great. That's great. It's great to hear you say that. I think, and you said something about, I think this would be obvious, but it's not obvious to someone who's worked on their form other ways.
Yeah.
You don't get those benefits from just working on your running form. But the thing about the Feldenkrais lessons is that you would already be running better if you had a better sense, a better image, a better map for your body and how it works. And so most running form flaws are in that, and not what you know about running or practicing or drilling or something. And so the lessons help you learn those things about yourself that, if you knew them, would make all the difference in your running. And then you can't restrict that effect to just your running, because you've learned about yourself. And so it applies all through your life,
No,
the process.
It's amazing, actually. Like, I have started to sort of notice, I think a lot of the issues around my knee, I can see how I've held myself, how I move around this side of my body. It feels like it's almost more to do with all the other stuff and not the running. Like, I feel like, a lot of people's running injuries maybe are not about running so much.
Yes, that's the truth too. Yeah.
It's so
movement
much
habits.
Like,
go ahead.
habitual movement habits.
Exactly. Movement habits you have all the time, and not just when you run. For sure. And then usually the problem is not where the pain is, right? It's how you stress is created by how you move your whole body. Awesome.
I feel like continuing with the Feldenkrais and the practice, like I say, I've continued to use the classes a lot. I feel like that's, for me, is something for life, that it wasn't just, that 3-month block. I've got something now that I will use going forward, and it's been very helpful. Like for me, like I mentioned earlier, if we all get niggles every now and then, and I'm going through a great deal of hormonal change, so things are really changing for me all the time at the moment. I'm not like some plateau level where I've done this and now I'm there. I can feel so it's really helpful to have all of those lessons to go back into, to go, okay, so it's changed, my body's changed quite a lot since I did that, beginning of last year. How does it feel now? What difference does that make? Going back and understanding that and working with that myself. I kind of feel like, why don't more people know about this? Like, come on, people. Like, I am forever telling people about you. I'm going on about you all of the time, especially because I coach a lot of people myself, and anyone I can, I will tell about Feldenkrais. I'll tell them to sign up to your introduction courses.
Wonderful. Well, that kind of covers my next question, which was going to be, what do you tell other people about this? But yeah, you pretty much answered that. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that covers it. I mean, I found it very transformative. I do think it's changed the way that I think about my running and my movement. And I feel like I can, things change, don't they? I feel much happier with knowing that things will change. And, I love running ultras, but it might not always be the distance that I'm running. I think Feldenkrais has made me much more accepting of how things are. Definitely. As an aside, though, generally in life, though, I feel like have tapped into like much more creativity than I ever thought I had. Like I'm all these like, kind of side effects, I suppose, from the things that you do. Just started doing lots of kind of different things, and little creative projects have like bubbled up. So yeah, it's difficult to know what feeds what, but I generally do think there's this kind of sense of having become more curious, like generally. And I think that's fed in from that approach in Feldenkrais, which is just like, be curious again, be curious. I think I feel like I'd probably forgotten like how to be curious for quite a while. You're busy and mom and job and whatever. So yes, it's been nice to kind of tap into that again. Yeah.
Great. That's just great. Thank you so much, Paula.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.